Hi, the kids know me as Miss G. They're probably on this app somewhere. And no, a lot of my students could not read. I'm going to share with you guys something. Buckle up. I don't know, grab a drink of water. Listen, put your phone down. I'm going to share with you guys something that I've known for a while, and it's one of the reasons why I left teaching. No, students cannot read. And I'm going to take you back to teacher education school. So, one of the classes that I took was to potentially become a reading specialist. And I remember distinctly feeling a pit in my stomach when this professor said, we don't teach phonics because there are exceptions to the rule. Like words like the don't always follow the rules, so we don't teach the rules. And I felt something deep within my soul that said this is wrong. And everybody goes, yeah, 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 that makes so much sense. And from that point on, that was the way of the world in about 2012, because that's when I graduated. I graduated teaching school in 2011. And she said that, and I thought, since when have exceptions made the rule? Because I was taught to read using Hooked on Phonics. We learned, now granted I was homeschooled, but I was taught to read on Hooked on Phonics. I learned what diphthongs were. I learned how to blend sounds. I learned, vowel, consonant, vowel rules. First vowel is long, second vowel is silent, those sorts of things. I was exposed to vocabulary. There was no list for me growing up for words that I just needed to know, which were sight words. So we started this thing, particularly in California, where we have what's called sight words. They're not words that you actually need to decode. They are words that you just have to simply memorize. I want you guys to remember back in the day, they had those commercials for My Baby Can Read. My baby could not read because my baby could not decode. My baby was simply memorizing what the letters look like together and then memorizing the word. An example of this that I often give when I am ever asked about teaching is that I had a kid read a word and he said mustard instead of mustache. Why? Because it started with M-U-S-T. And that was it. There was no decoding of what the sentence was actually saying, no decoding of the word, no sounding it out, because we were told in teaching school that sounding it out is a bad thing. This is one problem. So lo and behold and lo, we have students who only learned sight words unless they were doing some sort of extra tutoring with like Kumon or SCORE. That was what was big when I was growing up. They never learned how to read properly. They simply just learned how to use context clues. The same thing goes for writing. There was a point, y'all, where my teacher education teachers were telling me that as long as you understood the context of the writing, as long as I as a teacher understood the writing, I should not mark them down for spelling. Because did I understand, did I comprehend, then that's all that matters. Abominable. I can't believe I drank that Kool-Aid for some years, but that was one of the things that they told us. So, as we know, writing and reading go hand in hand, right? Reading, writing, spelling, all that goes hand in hand. So if you have kids who are told that their spelling doesn't matter as long as the teacher understands, we stopped doing spelling tests. That was like, oh, it was too, what about the kids who have these issues? The bean soup theory was all over the place in education. So this is at the elementary school level, right? That's the second problem, is that we stopped doing spelling tests. We didn't want to mark kids down if we understood the entire paper, but they had some words misspelled. We didn't want to lower their grades. The third thing, and I have taught many a grade. So people are like, you don't know elementary. I taught elementary, middle, and high school, and I taught English as a second language. So that's what it was called back in the day, English language development. The third thing is there is a push to integrate students who are not at reading level into mainstream classes because they don't want to segregate them. There's a whole plethora of reasons why, but that's another video. If you want me to talk about that, that's another video. So I was teaching a standard middle school English class, and I had a student in there who was at the 1.8 reading level. What that means is he is first grade, 8 months. Now, I am not a miracle worker, but baby, my kids, their reading levels went up, okay? There was nothing I could do about this. This kid's in 8th grade. Reading level is 1.8. Everybody else in the class is 5.6, 6.0. I could do something with them. But because of this push to keep kids in classes, and keep kids in mainstream classes, we have a bunch of students who are simply just falling behind. The fourth thing, we used to fail kids. We used to say, you know what? You're not ready, baby. You ain't ready. But to avoid looking like racist or looking like they were discriminatory, schools stopped holding kids back because they were noticing that some of the kids who were held back were minority students, namely Black and brown students. So, and by brown, I mean Latino, of Latino descent, whatever the politically correct language is, and Black, obviously. So they stopped holding kids back. I remember specifically at a school that I taught at, someone said, this will be the last promotion some of these kids will ever see, so we better give it to them. Meaning, 8th grade promotion, they're not gonna graduate high school. So they have to go through this 8th grade promotion because they're not gonna make it out. Instead of putting them in an intervention class. This is what has caused this. There are so many different factors not teaching fundamentals at the elementary school level. There's a school in Louisiana who has reverted back to basic phonics. Their kids are excelling. We know that works. But someone decided that it was too controlling or structured or something. We have kids who are being pushed into mainstream classes. We stopped really doing like honors, advanced. They're trying to avoid that thing because they don't want people to feel bad. They don't want to seem like they're discriminatory. Some kids are not ready and others are. Give those classes back. So that is why students cannot read. I would love to hear other people's experiences. One of the reasons why, and lastly, I'll say this, one of the reasons why I left is because teachers were always being blamed for this. But I'm like, if I'm teaching middle school, and you're not even at 6th grade level, it's dang near too late. Now, I will say that I did teach ELD classes and some of those students were 4th grade reading level in English, but because their Spanish was maybe 8th or 9th grade, they were able to catch up and they were able to get to 8th grade reading level by the end of the year, by the end of their middle school years, because I would teach them all together. So there are some exceptions to this, but in general, this is what's happening. Yes, students cannot read.